it's Bea, and you're listening to another episode of the In Your Feelings podcast. Okay, so today's episode is about burnout. I don't mean to smile when I say that. It's a very serious topic, and we're going to be diving into the signs of burnout and the signs of emotional exhaustion as a means of becoming more aware that it might be a state that you're navigating right now. But before I get into that, which is why I was smiling, we're here again. So many of you have been commenting, and so many of you have been messaging me on Instagram and Facebook and my Twitter DMs talking about wanting this podcast back visually. And that was a really, really big motivator for me to continue the podcast while we were going through 2020 and everything that went on last year. I have been in my tiny little apartment in Toronto recording these podcasts for you, and it hasn't felt the same. It hasn't felt the same, but I'm back in New York in a studio. I have bright lights in my face. I have a coffee right here. I have a candle going, and I'm just really excited to be here, really excited to be talking about a plethora of things that I've planned for this season of In Your Feelings. And I'm also very thankful for all of you and for the support that you've shown me throughout the last year and however many episodes it's been. I'm ecstatic to be back sitting in this chair, sitting in this studio, being able to connect with you on a deeper level. And I will ramble for 100 years if I continue to talk about it, but it was a big motivator, and all of you really got me through this last year. So I did just want to, before we get into the episode, say thank you. And I'm so excited that we're able to do this for you again. And if there's any feedback, or if you have any comments, or if you want to see anything else within this podcast, if you have topic ideas, conversation ideas, if you want me to do certain series related to topics that you've listened to or that you found on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on, please just DM me or send me a message. Let me know. I am so deeply inspired to create more for all of you and to show up for all of you with the lessons that I've learned, but also within my humanity, things that we're going through together, to show you that you're not alone. So let me know. I'm going to stop myself there. Let me know. I'm very open to listening, so I really appreciate it. Anyways, today we are going to be talking about burnout, and I kind of introduced it prior to my big thank you spiel, but burnout is something that has definitely touched my life on many occasions. I feel like you first hear about burnout when you're in college or university, or when you're dealing with a really big life change, and it's often very lumped into this concept of stress. But burnout and stress are actually very different from one another. Stress is considered to be something that is manageable. So when we're stressed, it could be because we have a piling up of responsibilities, or we're going through a season in our life where a lot of things are not actually going well. And we can kind of feel the exhaustion that comes from comprehending and understanding that we have a lot on our plate. However, it is within that awareness and that comprehension of those things that stress becomes a very manageable aspect of our lives. We can say, okay, all I have to do is get through these 5 case studies before my exam, and I'm really stressed about it now because I know the task at hand, but I also know deep down inside and very intuitively that once I get through these tasks, I will be okay, I will feel okay. Burnout, on the other hand, is a sense of helplessness. It makes you feel like you have nothing more to give. And I really want to reiterate that. Burnout makes you feel like you have nothing more to give. If you are the type of person who has ever gone through seasons of life where you just feel so drained and exhausted and almost helpless within your tasks, within the things that are showing up in your life, within the human beings in your life, you almost want to disengage, that's burnout. That is literally the definition of burnout. Burnout is defined as a state of chronic stress, both emotional stress and physical stress, that comes with feelings of detachment, depersonalization, and feelings of ineffectiveness. If you've ever felt, I'm trying so hard and yet it feels like I'm not doing enough. I'm trying to do so many things and yet there's no productivity coming from me. I am going and I am moving forward and I am checking off all the boxes, but it feels like I'm doing that outside of my own body. It feels like I am almost on autopilot. That is not stress. That is burnout. And burnout, as I just read you the definition, is chronic, and it can show up in our lives in so many ways, and it can really, really affect us from moving forward as efficiently, productively, or authentically and honestly as we hope to show up in this life. And that can cause a lot of emotional distress. If you feel burnt out, you're trying and you really care, and we all know that is my biggest thing, to remind you that a lot of these things that we deal in life come from being the person who cares, being the person who wants to achieve their dreams, being the person who is trying and fighting and working on healing and growing and just ensuring that they're crashing their whole heart into this world. Burnout comes from caring and from wanting more for yourself. But we have to understand the signs of burnout, because while you are working towards all of those things, while you know that you want to go towards your dreams, goals, anything that you could possibly wish for yourself, you really want to stretch into your potential. You have to heal this state of burnout in order to really reach that. And that's why I wanted to create this episode, as a means of talking you through the signs of burnout, helping you to differentiate between burnout and stress, helping you to really listen to these words and maybe get really honest with yourself about how you've been feeling or how you've been showing up. And from there, I would hope that you can then start healing it or working towards it, or even at the very, very primary level, at the foundational level, just being aware of it, knowing that it is something that is not normal, knowing that it is something that requires a lot of attention, knowing that it is something that you don't want in your life, and that you might be surviving at a specific kind of threshold, but that you don't have to live your life in that kind of discomfort, that it gets better. One of the first things that I want you to really think about, one of the first signs of burnout that is almost like the glaring neon sign that something might need to be dealt with, or that something is wrong, or that you're dealing with a lot of emotional exhaustion, is actually emotional detachment and depersonalization. So if you feel like you are going through the motions, if you feel like you are living your life on autopilot, like you are detached from yourself, like you don't feel like yourself anymore, you kind of haven't felt like yourself in a really long time. The days are going by and the hours are going by and the minutes are going by, and you say things like, oh my goodness, it's already October or November, or oh my goodness, it's already next year. How did that happen? How did I get here? I feel like I was moving forward, and I felt like I was healing, and I felt like I was growing, and I felt like I was doing everything that I was meant to do in life, but I don't feel that texture in my life. I don't feel attached to it. I don't feel like that was actually me. That is a detachment from self. That is emotional numbness. And that is a huge sign of burnout. Burnout is depersonalization caused by emotional stress. So that looks like you feeling like you're watching your life from the outside, like you don't feel engaged with it, like you are living your life, but it's not really yours. It doesn't belong to you. You don't feel any emotional connection. That is detachment. And detachment can also look like a loss of enjoyment. So that can start out very mild. Oh, I don't really feel like going out tonight, which is completely fine. And we know that I will always support you taking care of yourself and taking care of your mental health. But when that comes from a place of detachment, it's more you trying to protect yourself, you not really understanding why you don't want to engage with other people, you not really wanting to connect. It's because you don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. It's because you are so mentally exhausted that opening yourself up to anything that is going to require a lot of energy from you, intuitively you just don't want to. You want to close yourself off, you want to avoid, and you want to try to take care of yourself almost subconsciously. So if you've started noticing that certain things of life like lack that texture, that beauty, they don't make you as excited anymore. You don't go out of your way to add them into your routine. You don't go out of your way to ensure that you are holding on to them, that you are tucking them into yourself for safekeeping as a means of reminding yourself that there is like beauty and things to hope for in life. That is detachment. Detachment can also look like pessimism. And I know that can sound really backwards. So when we consider ourselves to be emotionally detached, we think that we don't care about anything. But the truth is we actually care a lot. That is why we are in this position of burnout. That is why we're so mentally exhausted. We care so much. And so pessimism comes out as negative self-talk, as not believing in ourselves, as almost looking at the world as if it now has this like glass half full aspect to it. Pessimism kind of gives you that what does it matter attitude. Does it even matter how hard I'm trying, because it feels like I'm not getting anywhere, and therefore why would I even try? Am I good enough for the things that I want in life? Because I don't feel connected to them. I don't feel like there is any beauty in life right now. I feel like things are gloomy and gray, and that they lack depth. That kind of pessimism is also a sign of burnout, and that can also cause you to isolate yourself. As I was saying, detachment is not just emotional detachment. Detachment can also be physical detachment, having to lock yourself away, having to ensure that there is no outward stimuli that is asking anything more of you. You just can't. You just physically can't give any more of yourself. And that causes you to say no to things that you would have said yes to prior to dealing with this or navigating this. That looks like isolating yourself from your friends and your family because you don't want to be a burden, because you do feel pessimistic, or you do feel negative, or you do feel like this heaviness and you don't want that like spilling out of your talk and your fingertips and the way that you are with them. You feel like you can't be yourself. You feel detached from yourself, and you therefore detach yourself physically from everyone around you, kind of perpetuating the cycle, kind of making it worse. That is what detachment looks like. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about burnout and how it can cause depersonalization. It makes you feel like a shell of yourself. And so if you're dealing with any of that, anything that I just got into, that is one of the largest signs of burnout. If you don't feel like yourself, if you feel like the last time you really knew yourself was like years ago or months ago, and that you've just been on autopilot ever since, thinking and feeling, but not actually feeling, and not actually being an extension of like your authentic nature, that is detachment, and that is burnout, and that is something to really, really get clear about and honest about with yourself. When I was dealing with extreme burnout, it was very difficult for me to admit it to myself. I just thought that I was growing up. I thought that I was dealing with a lot and that I would just get through it, and that I just had to keep pushing myself and going and going and going. And then I had someone talk to me about burnout, and we kind of got into the signs of it. And I remember saying, oh, well, I just feel like lazy now. Like I feel disconnected. I feel stressed and lazy. Like I'm trying so hard, and I just like, I can't do things to the degree that I used to be able to do them. And this person said, well, there's a very big difference between burnout and laziness. As a human being who cares a lot about what they're doing in this world, as a human being who cares about what they're putting in this world, you used to be motivated. And you used to have so many passions that you found so much joy in. And that just goes to show that you've kind of like lost yourself along the way. That kind of goes to show that you don't have the emotional capacity to like want for those things, or to be motivated, or to really grasp your passion that you used to have for life. That doesn't mean that you're growing up and you're becoming more cynical. Cynicism and pessimism is, as I just said, a result of being burnt out. You can't care anymore. You can't attach yourself anymore. So you detach. And that was so important for me to hear, because I feel like when you are a high achiever, or when you are highly sensitive and you start feeling the need to retreat and the need to isolate, and you start having the kind of life that feels like you are just going through the motions, it can make you feel lazy, because society tells you that not being so motivated and so intense and like so like moving forward at like this speed and this speed, checking off everything, they tell you, society tells you that that is laziness, that you're just not trying hard enough. But being burnt out means that no matter how hard you try, no matter how quickly you fling yourself forward, no matter how many things you take on, the motivation, the passion, it's not going to be there, because you physically and emotionally don't have the depth to care for it right now. You have to build that foundation back up. You have to reconnect with what is actually motivating to you, what is actually bringing you peace and beauty and passion in this life. And there is a difference between laziness and burnout, because lazy people don't care. If you are lazy, or if you are in a state of like not caring, you probably didn't have a lot of motivations. You probably didn't have a lot of passions. You probably are just completely happy, and this is okay, with going through the motions, with living each day slowly and in whatever way you want to. But a sign of burnout is you're very aware of the fact that you have almost disconnected, or you have almost like lost this motivation. So if you're looking back on the last few months, if you're looking back on the way that you used to be, firstly, I need to remind you that you don't have to get back to the person that you used to be, the person that you were when you were younger, the person that you were when you were in university, or when you were in your 20s, or 2 months ago. That person is a version of you that didn't have to go through everything that you've been through. They didn't have all of those things piling up. They had their own problems, and they had their own seasons of darkness or confusion or anything along those lines that they had to deal with. But that version of you is not who you are in this moment right now. And so look back at who you used to be, and be gentle with yourself, and understand that that version of yourself is someone who didn't have to deal with grief or loss or being emotionally drained, giving too much of themselves to the point of feeling like you feel right now. Be gentle with yourself and understand that that version can exist, but it is not who you are now. So when I say, if you're thinking about who you used to be 2 months ago, or 1 year ago, or who you were in university, as I said, I don't want you to think back and try to emulate that person. I want you to have gratitude and grace for that version of yourself, but I also want you to understand that you are a very different person, a stronger person, a kinder person, a person who has grown more and healed more. So while you're looking back, all I want you to focus on, not emulating that version of yourself, but just trying to understand if you felt motivated, if you felt passionate, if that was a big part of your life. And it's very obvious. It is very obvious to us when we lose that kind of enjoyment, when the things that used to bring us so much peace and so much beauty, they lose their texture, they lose their value in our lives. If you are looking back on who you used to be, and you are realizing that you used to have such a hope for life, that things didn't always feel so helpless. Like you felt like you had purpose, and you felt like you were able to move forward no matter what you were dealing with, and understand that while you were navigating a very difficult time in your life, you were still able to kind of see into your future and understand that, one, you were going to get through it, and two, that you had things that were carrying you through it, that you had the motivation to push yourself forward, that you had things in your life that made you feel like it was worth living. If you can look back and realize that you lost those along the way, that is not just life. That is not just what it means to grow up. That is burnout. That is emotional and physical burnout. And being aware of that, being aware that there is this almost like lack in your life, is so special, because now you can start figuring out how to get back there, how to get back to what motivates you, how to get back to what you're passionate about. And if you feel like you are, if I'm speaking this and you're thinking, well, that's impossible, it feels like there is this sense of helplessness in my life, like I will never be passionate or motivated again, then this is an especially important podcast for you, because being aware of that detachment and helplessness is the way that we can learn to heal it, is a way that we can kind of get really honest with ourselves. And it's scary and gritty, and this kind of growth is not easy, and it's extremely hard to admit to ourselves. But once we do admit it to ourselves, man, I don't feel joy the way I used to. Or, man, I feel really, really detached from everything. Like, I can't remember the last time I woke up and there was like hope pouring from my fingertips like it used to. While that is so difficult, I get emotional talking about it because I know what that feels like. While that is so difficult to admit to yourself, it is in that bravery and that vulnerability, it is within, digging through all of that dirt within ourselves, that we kind of understand that something isn't necessarily right. And when we understand that something isn't necessarily right within us, that is when we come back home to ourselves, and that is when we actually start connecting with ourselves again and admitting to ourselves that we have some work to do. And that's kind of how you heal the detachment. You have to admit to yourself that it exists in the first place. Okay, so how do you deal with burnout? How do you make tangible changes in your life if you have now recognized or become aware of the fact that you kind of lost yourself in it, or you kind of feel detached from yourself, or you feel less motivated or inspired the way that you used to? How do you tangibly approach your routines and your life and take care of yourself enough to pull yourself out of this state of chronic stress? So firstly, you recognize it. You recognize that you're operating from a place of extreme burnout. You recognize that you can't continue to go on like this. You become aware of the signs and the symptoms. You get really, really honest with yourself, and you acknowledge the wound so that you can now move forward and heal it. So we already went into the signs, the stages, and everything along those lines. If you feel like you resonated with what I said throughout most of this episode, then you move on to stage 2, which is you learn how to deregulate and reverse those symptoms of stress this is on a very, very like peripheral, like surface level. So what do you need right now to feel calm? What do you need right now to spark something within yourself that might remind you that there's so much more purpose and beauty left for you in this life? What do you really need? What do you seek? What will help you right now? Learning how to manage that stress, your response to that stress, learning how to add certain things into your routines, whether it's just listening to a certain song in the morning or going on a 30-minute walk. The second stage of really learning how to heal burnout, or at least start to advocate for yourself within it and heal it and make yourself feel better if you're experiencing it right now, is to really try to breathe and calm down and understand that you have to learn how to be kinder to yourself. And then once you start to learn how to do that, and that is a definite lifelong journey for all of us, but you learn how to start to build resilience. And resilience looks like setting boundaries. Resilience looks like understanding what your triggers might be, what causes stress in your life. How can you take yourself out of those moments? How can you learn how to say no maybe? Or how to tell people that you love that you don't necessarily have the emotional bandwidth to hold space for them, so that you don't become mentally and emotionally exhausted because you're trying to give and fix and do everything and be everything for everyone in your life. How do you learn how to set boundaries? How do you learn how to understand what is draining your energy and what is giving you energy? And once you start recognizing stuff like that, once you start really, really becoming clear on those things, you can start moving in the direction of those things. I know for me, two things that really helped: reaching out to people that I loved, understanding that I wasn't the only person dealing with the things that I was dealing with. Human connection and love, and just having someone hold you for like 20 minutes straight on a really bad day. That's how I learned how to manage my stress outside of myself. That was one of the really, really beautiful aspects of my life that I've started making more time for, not isolating myself and feeling overwhelmed and just like I was drowning in all of my stress, but rather speaking about my stress and giving it a name and seeing it for what it was and looking it in the face and having other people say, yeah, I've felt that too. And this is how I help myself, or this is how I made myself feel better. Or, hey, you know what? I'm not even gonna try to fix your life for you, but rather I'm just gonna hold your hand while you work through this. I'm just gonna sit here with you and help you breathe, and we're gonna get through this together. That changed my life, being able to lean on others the way that I allowed them to lean on me, being open and receptive and honest and vulnerable and willing to connect even when I wanted to detach. That helped my burnout so much. As odd as that sounds, because it sounds like an exertion of energy, but it was actually me opening up and me making time for people in my life that helped for me to realize that there was a lot more left to feel. That connection was the basis of everything, that it filled me up in ways that I couldn't even explain. Seeing a smile on my father's face, or hearing my little sister tell me about her day, making time for those phone calls, making time to hug my grandma, it brought me back home to myself and back home to my heart. And yeah, I guess just connecting. Try to connect, try to stay open, try to be receptive even when you want to close yourself off. Because as much as you can close yourself off to protect yourself from hurt, that also means that you're closing yourself off from light and beauty and everything else trying to sneak its way into you. So stay open. That is one of my biggest forms of advice with this. Stay open, stay vulnerable, and connect. And secondly, really take the time, as I said before, but this is an actual thing that you can do at night. When your day is done, take out a journal or a piece of paper, or do it on your phone, but also relative to what I said before, try not to do it on your phone because you might be distracted by social media. Try not to do it on your laptop. You might see your emails coming through. Really create a space where you can deregulate your nervous system and kind of like take yourself away from all the stimulation of the outside world, and write down your energy givers and your energy drainers. At the end of every single night, I go through my day and I say, this is what like really filled me up today. This is what brought a smile to my face. Sometimes it is as simple as having a really good croissant or a good cup of coffee in the morning. And sometimes it's like a 4-hour conversation with someone that I really love. But I really try to focus on the things that just brought me peace, that just brought me back home to myself. And I write those down. I become very, very aware of what is filling me up in life. And then I go onto the other side of that spectrum and I talk about what drained my energy. And sometimes it is as normal as, you know what, my job. I had a really stressful day. That was really draining for me. I have to learn how to say no, how to manage my time better, et cetera, et cetera. And other times an energy drainer can look like family or toxic people in your life. Not all of us have incredible relationships in our life that we can lean on, and, you know, or we do, but we also have those toxic friends or family members or connections that kind of drain us. And when we can really get clear on what those people look like in our life or what those circumstances look like in our life, whether it's the job, the toxicity, whether it is the stress that you haven't really been allowing yourself to feel or deal with, bills piling up or things that you just don't want to acknowledge. Once we can really get clear on what drained our energy, we can start to learn where to put our time and where to focus our energy. And so if I'm writing a list every night and that same person is constantly on that energy drainer section, I have to get honest and clear with myself and say, you know what? Maybe this isn't someone that I need to give so much of myself to. Or if my job is constantly on it, or my inability to manage my time, you know, that I really stressed myself out by not being better at time management, then I really have to start implementing ways to manage that, to learn how to be better or more productive or anything along those lines. Once you really see them visually laid out for yourself, it becomes so clear to you what you have to focus on letting go of and what you have to focus on embracing, and that better helps you to set boundaries, how to move in the direction of peace and how to move away from things that do not bring us peace in life. I was never able to do this internally, mentally. It was when I started writing down the lists, it was when I saw the columns, when I went through my journal at the end of a week and I saw how consistent certain things that were stressing me out were. It was only then that I was really able to illustrate it, visualize it, acknowledge it, be honest with myself within it, and ultimately move away from the things that were not bringing me joy or that were not nurturing me or nourishing my heart, my soul, my mind, my potential. And that's when things really started to change for me. So that was just like a little tangible thing that you can do at the end of each night to help yourself move from this state of burnout into a state of just really taking care of yourself and really moving in the direction of things that will not burn you out in the future. So I hope that little activity helps, and I really, really encourage you to take time to do it. And I could ramble for like 100 more hours on this. Let me know if you want to hear more about it. DM me, let me know how you're feeling after this episode. If you want me to create a series out of this, teaching you how I dealt with my burnout and how I healed it and how I manage it now, whatever it is, just, I love your feedback. I hope these words helped. I hope you feel seen, and I hope you feel loved and encouraged in moving forward and just living life to your best potential, because you are someone worth loving and you are worthwhile, and I will never stop reminding you of that. Thank you for being here and for listening. I'm so happy to be back, and I hope you love these episodes, and I'm going to stop now. So Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe out there and know that you are so, so loved.